coach vacancy. Other coaches the Lakers have an interest in: Boston assistant Sam Cassell, Dallas assistant Jared Dudley, former head coach Scott Brooks, and former Clippers guard J.J. Redick. The Western Conference Finals moves back to Minneapolis today for Game 5. Dallas has a 3-1 lead over the Timberwolves, 5:30 tip-off on TNT. The LA Sparks are at Chicago tonight, 5 p.m. tip. The Dodgers had 16 hits, including 4 homers, to pound the Mets in New York. The Dodgers scored 18 runs in the 3-game sweep over the Mets. The Dodgers are back home Friday against Colorado. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your black.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, African American Studies professor and author Andrew Carl joins us to discuss the economic gains of the U.S. post-slavery, reparations, and his new text, The Black Tax, 150 Years of Theft, Exploitation, and Dispossession in America. We'll do that with Professor Carl in our second hour today. In our third hour, to commemorate the 103rd anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre this weekend, we will reprise a very special conversation with the oldest living survivor of that historic tragedy, 109-year-old mother Viola Ford Fletcher. I can promise you to get ready for a rich conversation about racism, resilience, and resolution with mother Viola Ford Fletcher, now 109 years young. I think you'll be impressed with her today in our third hour. But we commence today's show talking politics with the noted civil rights attorney, author, TV analyst, autism advocate, and talk show host, Areva Martin. I am pleased to have Areva on this program. Areva, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, and thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you on. There's a whole lot to talk about today in this hour in terms of politics and beyond. Not even sure where to start. I feel like Alex Trebek on Jeopardy with a board full of political topics that we could choose from. I think I will commence with this. So much breaking news today, but this story about Justice Alito, Areva Martin is a Harvard-trained lawyer, so this is her expertise. You see her all the time on CNN providing legal analysis. So this Justice Samuel Alito story just won't go away, nor should it for that matter. But Clarence Thomas, Justice Samuel Alito, both of them always seem to find themselves in trouble when it comes to their integrity, dare I say it, their autonomy, dare I say it, and the ways in which they continue to engage politically beyond their seats on the highest court in the land. The story of late, as you well know, are these flags, these various flags that make all kinds of statements that have been flown above the home of Justice Samuel Alito. And given what these flags represent, there are those who are calling for him and Clarence Thomas, for other reasons, to step aside in these cases, a couple of them coming up, that the Supreme Court is going to hear regarding Donald Trump and his presidency, and for that matter, the future of his candidacy this time around. Samuel Alito said very clear yesterday, I am not stepping aside. He essentially said, my wife enjoys flying flags, I do not. So not unlike Robert Menendez, senator out of New Jersey, Democrat, who's also on trial right now. You know where I'm going, right? All these males are blaming their wives for their situations. Menendez blaming his wife in his trial right now. For the mess he's in. Samuel Alito blaming his wife now for flying these flags. I had nothing to do with it. She likes flying flags. I don't, but they both live in the house. That's just the top side. I'll let you take it from there. You know this stuff better than I. But what say you about these recurring stories regarding Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, and both of them, or neither of them, refusing to recuse themselves or acknowledging or willing to recuse themselves from these upcoming cases?
It's so funny that you framed the question in that way, Tavis, because I did the exact same thing yesterday on my show, Areva Martin in Real Time, ask what is up with these otherwise powerful men blaming their wives for their conduct and not accepting any personal responsibility for the role that they play. We all know that Justice Alito's wife would only fly those flags if she had the implicit or explicit authority, permission, consent from her husband. She knows the job that he's in. She knows the role that he plays. She knows how important it is that he not even have any appearance of impropriety, but yet she did it, and yet he allowed her, and I don't mean allow in the sense that he's her master, sure, but she understands, you know, who writes their paycheck. She understands the lifestyle that they live is because of his income, because we're not talking about just one home. We're talking about a primary residence and then a summer or a vacation residence. And as far as we can tell, she's not been gainfully employed for a while. So he is the primary breadwinner, and she recognizes and completely understands what that means as a member of the U.S. Supreme Court. But I think what we're seeing more broadly is a certain level of arrogance and a certain level of, you know, Republicans and those that tend to skew Republican thumbing their nose at every institution in this country, whether it's the Supreme Court or it's our judicial system that Donald Trump on a daily basis has taken shots at. And Alito and Clarence Thomas have the same attitude that Donald Trump has, which is they are above any kind of accountability. And Justice Alito all but said it. I'm not recusing myself. I'm not changing anything about my behavior, my wife's behavior, and so what? Senate, Congress, American people deal with it.
We'll talk more about these.
It's really quite that simple.
No, it is. It's simple, but it's also stunning. We'll talk more about these flags in just a moment. A great deal more to cover. President Biden and Kamala Harris made a joint campaign appearance this week together in Pennsylvania, appealing to black voters. And so it's interesting, and Areva and I will delve into this, I promise. Both Joe Biden and Donald Trump believe that black voters are in play this time around. I don't know that I can recall an election like this where both the Democrat and Republican thought that black voters were in play to the extent that these two guys do. And they're both going after them in their own way. There's a great line, I think, today in the New York Times today that says Joe Biden has a list and Donald Trump has a vibe. Joe Biden has a list of accomplishments, that is, and Donald Trump has a vibe. But both of them are making a strong play for African-American voters. On the one hand, that's a good thing, that we're not being taken for granted. On the other hand, we can unpack this thing 18 million ways, and we will when we come forward with my colleague, Areva Martin, here on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Call Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
A Gain Scent Bead story. Jim was at the laundromat when he heard his ear said Maraca, senor, but his nose said, hey, freshest scent ever. Following his nose, Jim found a man pouring a bottle of Gain Scent Beads into the washer. The scent, the freshness. Jim blurted, sir, your scent Maraca smell amazing. Actually, Jim, most noses call them Gain Scent Beads. Try Gain Scent Beads, way fresher than detergent alone.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now, you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears, thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Tavis Smiley and Areva Martin coming your way right now across the country. Those listening, you know Areva from her many appearances on CNN as a legal analyst. Not just legal issues, but an analyst across the board. But certainly the legal field is where she is most noted as a civil rights attorney. We'll talk about a major case that Areva is spearheading right now regarding reparations, essentially, in Palm Springs, California. Yeah, the playground of the rich. There's a major story there about how the city didn't just take away land, but burned people out, literally burned them out of their property. And all these years later, not unlike the Bruce's Beach case that many of you I've heard about here in California. Areva will unpack that in greater detail as we move through this hour about this case that she is spearheading and what may be happening in the not too distant future. But I think Areva Martin is going to be making a big announcement not too long from now about success in this case to respect these people of color who were disenfranchised, and much more than that in the city of Palm Springs, California. Has already made national news. There was a huge story about this. You may have seen a few days ago in the New York Times. And so, yeah, that case, that's the one that my colleague Reva Martin is spearheading. She is a talk show host every day on my home station here in LA, KBLA Talk 1580. Reva Martin in real time airs during drive time, afternoon drive. So she's a busy, busy sister, but an hour with her right now, talking about a number of issues. If you just tuned in, we were talking about Samuel Alito. If you've been following this story or not, you should. It speaks to the importance of who is in the White House when it comes to appointing Supreme Court justices. And so Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, as you all know, have been in so much trouble of late regarding a number of different issues around which people are demanding that they recuse themselves, namely these cases involving Donald Trump. You recall that Clarence Thomas's wife, Jenny Thomas, was at the January 6th insurrection rally. You recall that she was engaged in conversations daily with Mark Meadows, then the White House Chief of Staff. All this came out in those January 6th insurrection committee hearings, chaired by our friend and brother out of Mississippi, Benny Thompson. So you all recall the data that came out, the storyline that came out about Jenny Thomas, wife of Clarence, and her role in the January 6th insurrection and beyond. And yet Clarence Thomas has said he will not recuse himself. You know the stories about Harlan Crow, who's given Clarence Thomas all these gifts and paid for a house for his mama and sent his family to college and all that stuff. Clarence Thomas refuses to recuse himself from any of these cases. Now Samuel Alito is taking the same posture. He's flying political flags making political statements above both of his homes, now blaming it on his wife. She likes to fly flags. I don't. Being somewhat snarky, I think, and thumbing his nose at the Senate, at Congress, and frankly, all of us as American citizens, and refusing to recuse himself from these upcoming cases regarding Donald Trump. This is just hubris, and I might add wanton hubris to my mind, on the part of these Supreme Court justices who serve for life. That's a whole nother conversation about these long terms and nothing we can really do once they're there. And so they're thumbing their nose at the power structure. They're thumbing their nose at everyday people. I mentioned a moment ago that President Biden and Kamala Harris, Vice President, were in Pennsylvania this week, starting their real effort of reaching out to the African-American community in this election season. I'm going to play a couple of clips from their appearance together. But here now is the President of the United States talking specifically, as I said a moment ago, about why elections matter. They do have consequences.
And overall, we appointed 200 black judges to the federal bench. And guess what? The next president, they're going to be able to appoint a couple justices, and I'll be damned if they're not going to have it. Look, if in fact we're able to change some of the justices when they retire and put in really progressive judges like we've always had, tell me that won't change your life when Trump justices are already gutting voting rights, overturning Roe, decimating affirmative action, and so much more. We're going to let that happen? We can't. No, we really can't.
The president is leaning into it, Areva. He understands very clearly and making a significant play, a credible play to black folk. Do you really want that to happen? Tell me, if I get a chance to appoint 2 or 3 more justices, that won't change your life. Your thoughts on his appeal?
I think his appeal is timely. I think it's exactly what is ordered, what the doctor has ordered in this moment. And I want to go back to something you said, Tavis, about Trump. The New York Times, again, you and I, great minds, think alike. I read that article too. Mm-hmm. This notion that Trump is a vibe and Biden is a list. I don't think that's accurate. You know, corporate media is making this election akin to a boxing match, a sporting event. You've got to keep both opponents close to each other to keep the public engaged, to keep people reading your paper, watching your shows. I don't have any sense that there's going to be a significant number of black voters voting for Donald Trump. Every election cycle, Republican candidates get a small percentage of black votes. I think that's going to be the same this election cycle as it has been historically. I think there's a lot of hyperbole around black folks voting for Donald Trump, being somehow hoodwinked by his vibe. The vibe is saying to us as black people, you like me because I'm now a criminal defendant. I have a mugshot. I've been indicted on felony charges, and I make big, gaudy gold tennis shoes, so you black people, you can relate to that, right? Because all of y'all are criminals. And that's really the message to black people. And we're way smarter than that. We are not, enthralled with a man who has 91 criminal charges against him, who's right now awaiting a jury verdict on whether he engaged in criminal conduct to basically try to impact the 2016 election. That's really the only message that Donald Trump is selling to black folks. And I just don't see us falling for that. Why? What is in it for us? What can he do for us other than what he has historically not done for us? So I just don't buy these polls. I don't buy these pundits who say that somehow the black vote is in play for any Republican, and definitely not Donald Trump. I think Biden and Harris need to keep doing what they're doing, going into black communities, going to Morehouse, the graduation in Atlanta, going into Philadelphia, going into these urban cities, particularly urban cities where there are, the battleground states, and make their appeal and tell the American people, tell black people what they have done. Those judges, that is huge. Biden has appointed more black judges to federal courts than any president in the history. And that's more than Obama. That's more than Clinton. That's more than any liberal Democratic president in the history of this country. And alternatively, Donald Trump put the 3 conservative justices on the Supreme Court who are responsible for the overturning of Roe v. Wade, who are responsible for gutting affirmative action in college admissions. And if Trump is back in office, there are 3 justices over 70 years old. He literally would have an opportunity to make the court pretty much a 7-2 court. And that is a lifetime of conservative rulings that would undo pretty much every freedom I believe we enjoy in this country. So I think as we start to tell that message more and as we get closer to this election, we will not even have a conversation about black votes being in play for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. I want to come back to that point because you used the word hyperbole, and that's one way to read it. And I recognize, as you do, that these polls are really snapshots in time, no question about that. And yet, I think you will not deny that whether you believe or accept these polls or not, Ariva, there is a pattern to these polls. Every poll, every study, every survey shows that Biden's numbers with black people at best are soft. I'm with you. There's no doubt in my mind that those black people who do turn out will vote significantly for Joe Biden. He'll pull that, no question about it. But I'm trying to juxtapose this notion that you find it to be simply hyperbole with a pattern in these polls. So what are you seeing that I'm not seeing?
Well, one, we know a lot of these polls, these political polls, are historically, they've been just flat out wrong. And we're talking about May. So the people who are tuned in right now to elections are people like you and me who do this for a living. When I go out into the community and I talk to folks, they're not watching cable news. They're not reading the New York Times. They're not living their lives every day, based on what Donald Trump is doing or even what Joe Biden is doing. So I just think the polling, it's way too early for the majority of Americans who do not live their lives in the bubble that we live in, where politics are our bread and butter, where we are reading every newspaper every minute of the day and paying so close attention to this. And we're about to go into summer. So as we go into the summer months, people are even more, removed from or, distracted and detached from what's happening politically. We will see just tons, literally billions of dollars that will be targeting voters, Democratic voters in the key swing states and in key states starting around late August as we are coming back from that convention that will take place in Chicago in the 3rd week of August. And then we can talk about the polls. But talking about a poll today in May when most voters are not tuned into politics, I just don't think is very instructive.
Yep. Ariva made a powerful point a moment ago. It kind of made me laugh, but she was on point, as she tends to be all the time, about Donald Trump's appeal. Again, we were talking about that line in the New York Times. It's an article worth reading, but that line jumps out at you when you read it, that Joe Biden has a list and Donald Trump is a vibe when it comes to appealing to the votes of African Americans. You heard Ariva just sort of smack down that notion, how she thinks that's just the mainstream media, the corporate media, I might add, doing exactly what they do. And there certainly is some truth to that. And that all the media seems to care about is covering the horse race. I've complained about this for the balance of my career, that the media does a really bad job in these presidential election cycles of covering the horse race, but not covering the issues. They know what they're doing. I don't like it. And I continue to draw attention to why they want to focus so narrowly on the race between these two horses, but will not focus as they should, I think, and drill down on the issues. That said, you heard Aretha say a moment ago that Donald Trump's appeal to black voters is, I'm a thug, I'm a criminal, and you like thugs and criminals, and I've been arrested, and I got a mug shot. I don't need to repeat it. You heard what she said. She laid it out rather brilliantly. Joe Biden had a little something to say about that this week when he and Kamala Harris once again were campaigning and rolling out their efforts to woo and win the black vote. Take a listen to the president.
Folks, the threat that Trump poses is greater in his second term than his first. It's clear that when he lost in 2020, something literally snapped in the sky. No, I'm serious. That's why January 6th happened, when he unleashed an insurrection. Now, he's running again, and he's clearly unhinged. He calls insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol patriots. Patriots. If reelected, he wants to pardon, quote, every one of them. Let me ask you, what do you think he would have done on January 6th if black Americans had stormed it? Think about this. What do you think would have happened if black Americans had stormed the Capitol? I don't think he'd be talking about pardons. It's the same guy who wanted to tear gas you as you peacefully protested George Floyd's murder. The same guy who still calls the Central Park Five guilty, even though they were exonerated. He's that landlord who denies housing applications because of the color of your skin. And I'll be damned if I can let Donald Trump turn America into a place filled with anger and resentment and hate. Folks,
the president's going in. He's clear about his message to black people. He's hitting all the right notes in that particular speech earlier this week again in Pennsylvania. Why is he in Pennsylvania? You know why. He's going to take up residency in Pennsylvania. He's going to take up residency in Michigan and Wisconsin because those are the swing states he needs to pull this thing off. There are two questions I had right quick about that. I'm watching my clock. Got about 2 minutes now. We'll continue when we come forward. The first is, and this is inside the Beltway. This is your point earlier that nobody's watching us the way we are, but we do what we do. He used this word unhinged. And when he called Donald Trump unhinged, it's one thing to hit him politically, but when he called him unhinged, my mind went to the trouble that Hillary got into calling people deplorables. You'll recall all the hell she caught and how she had to deal with calling people deplorables. Now, she was calling people deplorables, not a candidate, but calling Donald Trump unhinged stuck out at me. It jumped out at me. How did you process that word choice?
Oh, I was over here jumping up and clapping and high-fiving myself because that's the kind of talk. That's the kind of real talk. You want to talk about a vibe?
Yeah.
Every black person that watched the insurrection has said, if that were us storming the Capitol, we would have been tear gassed, shot, murdered, under a jail. He said what we all said to each other. We have said that to each other over and over again. And the thought that those people will be pardoned when we know black folks sitting in jail doing 20 years for small, insignificant drug charges, nonviolent charges, that's enough. If nothing else motivates you about this election, that should motivate you, that those predominantly white insurrectionists will be walking free. That's enough.
No, I had a guest on yesterday, Judge Wendell Griffin, retired, had a great line. Speaking of great lines, we talking about the New York Times line. Joe Biden has a list. Donald Trump is a vibe. Judge Griffin yesterday reminded us that if Donald Trump is in fact convicted in this case, we're waiting on the jury to give their verdict. If he's convicted, if he does what he says he's going to do, which is to release all the people that were involved in January 6th, you'd have a convicted felon releasing convicted felons. Think about that for a second. More than Reva Martin when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Democrats are pressuring Supreme Court Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas to recuse themselves from cases related to Donald Trump and the 2020 election. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal asked Chief Justice John Roberts in a letter today to exert his powers to force the justices off the cases. Blumenthal is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. In Illinois, several Chicago police officers are being acknowledged for their stellar work while on duty. The 63rd Annual Chicago Police Recognition Ceremony was held yesterday. African-American Mayor Brandon Johnson was in attendance. There were also tributes to fallen officers, Andreas Vasquez-Lasso and African-American Ariana Preston. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
The Final Four and the best of the region meet at the CONCACAF W Gold Cup semifinals at Snapdragon Stadium on March 6th. Who will win the battle for the title? Secure your tickets at wgoldcup.com/tickets and be part of the history. CONCACAF W Gold Cup, our legacy, our cup.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Does the name James Borrego ring a bell for you? If not, you're not by yourself. Borrego is an assistant coach with the New Orleans Pelicans. He spent most of Wednesday at the Lakers practice facility interviewing for the team's head coach vacancy. Other coaches the Lakers have an interest in: Boston assistant Sam Cassell, Dallas assistant Jared Dudley, former head coach Scott Brooks, and former Clippers guard J.J. Redick. The Western Conference Finals moves back to Minneapolis today for Game 5. Dallas has a 3-1 lead over the Timberwolves, 5:30 tip-off on TNT. The L.A. Sparks are at Chicago tonight, 5 p.m. tip. The Dodgers had 16 hits, including 4 homers, to pound the Mets in New York. The Dodgers scored 18 runs in the 3-game sweep over the Mets. The Dodgers are back on Friday against Colorado. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
If we're the ones disproportionately impacted by these climate catastrophes, why should we be silent? Turning up the volume all year long on the climate conversation for KBLA Talk 1580.
Savings. Now that's speaking the Lowe's language. And with My Lowe's Rewards, your savings just keep coming with member-only offers. Learn more about their new loyalty program at lowes.com/MyLowe'sRewards. Subject to terms and conditions. See lowes.com/terms for details.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed with Reva Martin, civil rights attorney, analyst on CNN that you see all the time talking about a variety of issues, certainly legal issues. She's an autism advocate. She is many things. She's a talk show host here on my station in L.A., my home station, KBLA Talk 1580. The host of Reva Martin in real time every day during drive time, 4 to 6 p.m. in Los Angeles. But you can always check her out on the app, the KBLA 1580 app, if you're listening across the country. I want to move in a moment here to talk about this major case that Reva is spearheading. Big story. The New York Times about this the other day that you might have read. But if you're unaware of this story, it's something that I wanted to bring to your attention. So I'll let her cut loose on that in just a moment. But I mentioned earlier, the president was in Philadelphia this week with Vice President Kamala Harris rolling out their appeal to black voters. I played two clips for you of the president speaking. I don't want to leave out the vice president because I do want to ask Reva a quick question or two about Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, who she knows rather well on a personal level. So let me play this clip from Vice President Harris speaking earlier this week, and we'll talk about Kamala Harris, then move on to talk about the drama in Palm Springs.
So in 2020, black voters in Philadelphia and across our nation helped President Biden and me win the White House. Yes, you did. And in 2024, with your voice and your power, we will win again. Philadelphia, in Joe Biden, we have a fighter. A leader with skill, vision, determination, and compassion. A leader who keeps his promises. As a candidate for president, Joe Biden gave his word that we would fight to address some of the biggest issues facing the black community, and we have delivered.
We are pleased to be heard right now on WURD in Philadelphia. I'm so humbled to be on all these stations across the country, but we want to thank WURD for being kind enough to carry this program every day. Wonderful team of people there, and so since they were in Philadelphia, I thought I'd shout out our Philadelphia affiliate. That said, Kamala Harris, fair to say, I think Reva has been a lightning rod in this first 4-year term. We know the right can't stand her, and we know all the backstory. Your thoughts on her? You heard her there doing what vice presidential candidates do. That's her job, right? But your sense of how she has navigated these first 4 years and whether she'll be an asset or a drag on the ticket this time around.
Oh, she has come into her own in the most incredible way. She has found her voice, and just listening to her again, I'm getting chills thinking about all the drama. You talk about drama and all the backlash and all the vitriol that's been directed at her, and how she still is standing, not just surviving, but thriving. And she has been an incredible asset to the president, to the administration. She has been engaging with students around the country, doing a college tour of historically black colleges. Crowds literally lined up around the corner. I mean, like blocks and blocks and blocks of students. And one of the things, Tavis, because Donald Trump just literally sucks all the energy out the room. He's a rating juggernaut, and the cable networks and the stations know that. So they play everything that he does. They follow every move that he makes, and therefore we don't get to see the crowds. We don't get to see the energy, the excitement that Biden and Harris create on the ground, and particularly Vice President Harris when she is out talking with people. But I've been there. I've been at these events. I've witnessed the thousands and thousands of people that turn out for her, again, because they are so normal, because they're doing the job of the president and vice president without all the chaos, without people being indicted, without people being convicted and incarcerated. They just don't get the kind of media attention that they deserve. And that's why black media is so important, because we cover their stories. We tell the stories of what they are doing, particularly for the black community. So I couldn't be more proud of Kamala Harris. I couldn't be, more elated to call her not just my vice president, but to call her friend. She has just done an outstanding job. I had a historian on my show, Reva Martin in Real Time, who follows vice presidents, and he, a white historian, one of the major colleges, and he went through the vice presidents. And, traditionally it was a pretty ceremonial role. Vice presidents didn't have a whole lot to do. And, that started to change about 30, 40 years ago. And he looked at the work that vice presidents had done and, compared it all. And he said, hands down, Kamala Harris has been the most effective vice president that we've ever had in the history of this country. The number of world leaders that she's met with, the issues that she has tackled. And so there is empirical data. There's evidence. And I know you like data. I like data. And he says the data just proves she has been one of our most effective vice presidents ever. She doesn't get credit for it, but she has been. And folks who care about data should know that.
There'd be a barroom brawl, as you and I know, covering politics. I think Joe Biden, with all due respect to his vice president, would argue that she was more effective than he was as Obama's VP. Al Gore would certainly argue that during the Clinton era, but we ain't got time for a barroom brawl. But I take your point. Let me ask you one final political question. I want to spend the rest of our time talking about Palm Springs, and my time is getting away from him. I got about a minute and a half here. Just give me your quick response to the Donald Trump case in Manhattan. We are awaiting. This is day 2 now of jury deliberations. We are waiting on this verdict. I've said many times I'm not sure it matters to his constituency, but he will be campaigning if he's found guilty. He'll be campaigning as a convicted felon. On the other hand, all it takes is one for this jury to be hung. Your thoughts right quick on what we're waiting on now in New York City.
I think we're going to see convictions on some of the counts and probably acquittal on others. We know prosecutors tend to, what some folks would say, overcharge.
Yeah.
There's 34 counts here, and I suspect that we will get some convictions on some of those counts, and probably not all 34, but I don't see them acquitting him either on all 34 counts. So to your point, I think we're going to have the first convicted felon in the history of this country running to be the president and campaigning, saying that he will pardon other convicted felons.
When we come forward, and for the rest of this hour, their Palm Springs neighborhood was burned more than 50 years ago, and now they want respect, they want compensation, and their lawyer is Reva Martin. More with her when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams. My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Hi, Tavis Smiley here. We're getting closer to June 18th, and time is running out for you to register to join us for our historic symposium live on C-SPAN, Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com right now if you want to be in the audience when the nation will see for the first time ever a stage full of brilliant black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's all going down. Well, it's actually all going up. Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. live from the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Again, admission is free, but we're filling up fast. So if I were you, I would log on right now to KBLA1580.com to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. We're KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Areva Martin. Areva Martin, I'm going to stand down now. Tell me about this this case in Palm Springs. Many of us read the New York Times in-depth story about it, but for those who did not, take it away.
Yeah, Palm Springs, California, as you said, the playground for the rich and famous. About an hour and a half outside of Los Angeles, this beautiful, beautiful desert community that many snowbirds during the cold months on the East Coast has a dark history that many people didn't know about. I didn't know about it myself when I first moved to California almost 20 years ago. But in the 1950s and 60s, the city, as it was becoming the playground of the rich and famous and this getaway, desert getaway, had a problem. Black and brown laborers who had moved into the city to help build the infrastructure of the city and to support the wealthy families had taken up residence in what now is downtown Palm Springs. And the white city fathers did not want anyone, particularly publicists, media, snowbirds, coming into the city, seeing this black and brown community in the heart of its downtown. So they needed to get rid of these families. And rather than use a legal process, they actually just upended the family. They went into the community, gave people door-knock kind of notice that they had to leave, that they were going to be leveling the community, and literally did that, used the city's fire department to burn down houses, then sent in bulldozers to demolish the homes that they set afire. And the Attorney General for the state of California came into Palm Springs in the late 1960s, wrote a scathing report after investigating what the city had done, called it a city-engineered Holocaust, talked about how this community of predominantly black and brown folk had been targeted by the city and had been targeted primarily because of their race, and really wrote the scathing report. However, at the end, stated that there were no crimes committed, although I take issue with that. Mm-hmm. But, this was the 1960s, and California has its own history of systemic racism, very much akin to the South, not as overt, but definitely was as pervasive. And so for 60 years, the city was able to spin a narrative that somehow what it did was, valuable and beneficial to the residents and to the city. And after George Floyd's murder, when we're in this racial reckoning period and folks all over the country were removing Confederate statues, there was a statue that had been erected outside of City Hall of the mayor, who was primarily responsible for the leveling of this community, for the burning, the destruction of this community. And he was not only a racist mayor, he was homophobic. And the gay community, predominantly a gay community that now lives in Palm Springs, joined forces with the black and brown community, and they petitioned the city council to remove the statue. And in doing that, it was an opportunity to revisit what had happened to this community that is fondly known as Section 14. The city issued an apology for its racial attack on the community, but did nothing else. And I was retained about 2 years ago to help the families seek reparative justice, to get some kind of remedies for the losses, the substantial losses that they sustained. I mean, we're talking about the disruption of a thriving community, disruption of businesses and cultural icons, churches, and other kinds of institutions that were on Section 14. In the destruction of generational wealth, we know in this country that the middle class, predominantly white middle class, is middle class and even affluent folks because of homes, home ownership, and the passing down of homes, the equity that is built in homes. And, if you own a piece of property in California, you could be poor, but you may be a millionaire in terms of the equity in that home. So we're talking about losses that have been estimated to be over $2 billion. And it's taken us about 2 years to get to the point now of negotiating with the city. And about a month ago, the city made its first cash offer, as well as, conceded to some of the demands that we've been making, including things like building monuments and statues and having a day of remembrance and doing things to acknowledge the significant contributions of this community.
I didn't want to step in, so now you've got the backstory to what the case is all about. In our remaining moments with Areva Martin, I've got a few questions now that I can put to her. We'll do that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
More of Areva Martin right now. We got about 4 minutes left here with Areva. Just time for a few questions about this major case in Palm Springs that she is counsel for on behalf of these families. Question number one. I'm not naive about this, but this really wasn't that long ago. Like who comes into a community, knocks on the door, tells folk to get out, and then burns them out of their property? Areva, I mean, the story. I mean, if I didn't know the story of America, I'd find it pretty incredulous.
You have to put your mind back to the 1950s and 60s, and at a time when black folks, I mean, like you said, it wasn't that long ago, but think about how we were treated. In California, you couldn't live in certain neighborhoods. There were housing restrictions, racially restrictive housing policies in Palm Springs. So the families lived on Section 14 because they couldn't live anyplace else. So as unbelievable as that sounds, there literally was a time in this country, not that long ago, where you could work for a white person, but you couldn't live next door to them. And that's the era that we're talking about, when black folks had no agency, no power, and we were literally still thought of as less than human.
Yeah. How do you press an entity, even one that is the playground of the rich and famous like Palm Springs, when there are estimates that the damages done are north of $2 billion? Like, how do you even press them for a fair settlement? Because you know it ain't going to be $2 billion.
No, and we've not made a demand of $2 billion. We did that estimate so that everyone would have an understanding of the enormity, of the magnitude of the losses. We are asking the city to resolve this matter for what is essentially going to be less than 2% of the annual budget of the city. And we're also talking about ways to collaborate with the city to bring in heritage tourism to help increase the economic pie, the economic footprint of Palm Springs. My clients, I have about 1,000 of them. They love Palm Springs. They want to see the city thrive. They want to see a city that is more inclusive, that is welcoming of people of color, and that is thriving economically, because they understand that they thrive when the city thrives. So this has never been about, a money grab for my clients. It's always been about just getting justice, and at the same time, like I said, making this city more inclusive and more attractive to people of color.
Got about a minute to go. It sounds like at this point things are finally, after all these decades and after 2 years of your work, it sounds like things are headed in the right direction. Yes?
We are at the negotiation table, and whenever you have a cash offer, it's always a good sign. Obviously, we are not across the finish line, but we are very encouraged that the city will continue to negotiate in good faith, as we have done, and that we'll get justice. Look, Juneteenth is coming up in a couple of weeks, and we've said to the city, think of the history that you can make by having this matter resolved and reported out to the world. We had one big New York Times story, but imagine the headlines that would be made if this city did the right thing, stepped up, and resolved this case for these people of color on Juneteenth. I mean, the history would, the headlines would be phenomenal. So that's our hope, is that the city sees the opportunity to do the right thing at this time.
And that's what you get when you get a Harvard-trained lawyer who's also a talk show host and an author. She knows how to frame the case. She is Areva Martin. She's my colleague here in L.A., hosting Areva Martin in real time, weekdays during afternoon drive. But the rest of you around the country know her predominantly as a best-selling author, and you see her all the time offering analysis on CNN. We are honored to have her as our colleague here in Los Angeles. Areva, thanks for your work and witness. Good to have you on. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you. My pleasure. Be well.
Good to have you on. Likewise. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Democrats are pressuring Supreme Court Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas to recuse themselves from cases related to Donald Trump and the 2020 election. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal asked Chief Justice John Roberts in a letter today to exert his powers to force the justices off the cases. Blumenthal is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. In Illinois, several Chicago police officers are being acknowledged for their stellar work while on duty. The 63rd Annual Chicago Police Recognition Ceremony was held yesterday. African-American Mayor Brandon Johnson was in attendance. There were also tributes to fallen officers Andreas Vasquez Lasso and African-American Ariana Preston. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black and
W Gold Cup, our legacy, our cup.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.